ever stop and think, why spend too much time just getting ready? Let me be honest, I don't know one single thing that I haven't done to make you notice me. Let me be real here. When I see you, my heart starts racing, but I don't know if I like this chasing and playing and waiting around. It's a shame that my hands start shaking all of the time when you're around me. But this time, girl, I know what's bothering me. I need somebody to love. Oh, nah, 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 nah. Don't you see what's wrong with me? I need somebody to love. Oh, oh, nah, nah. I don't know what I could say to convince.
Today is November 6, 2020, Friday of the 31st week in Ordinary Time, and you are tuned in to Deacons Discussions Drinks.
You don't listen, babe, but still you got me missing you. When I see you, my heart starts racing, but I don't know if I like this chasing and playing and waiting around. It's a shame that my hands start shaking all of the time when you're around me. But this time, girl, I know what's bothering me. I need somebody to love. Oh, nah, 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 nah. Don't you see what's wrong with me? I need somebody to love. Oh, oh, nah, nah. God, I'm sick of this waiting. You got me going crazy tonight. So why?
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Deacons Discussions and Drinks. I'm Deacon Tim Stout,
I'm Deacon Dallas Kelly.
and Father Lynn Wynn is taking a medical absence tonight. So, nothing major, just he's off, right?
Yes.
Hello, Dallas, you there? Check, Roger. We're back in the studio tonight after being off last weekend. Much needed restful weekend after being outside in that nice fall cold weather out there on the outside steps of Cardome. That was a pretty good time, wasn't it, Dallas?
Absolutely. Cold and
Cold
had a-
and
had a fire going,
had
and people gave away a lot of money.
gave away a bunch of money. Gave away some money to the guy who's on the finance committee. I never did hear if he donated that back in. Bill Viney, if you're listening, don't forget, 10% goes to the church. Hey, tonight we got a special guest going to join us via Zoom. You guys have probably heard his name before if you're live in the Diocese of Lexington or been around St. Francis and John very long. Mr. Mike Allen, the Director of Family Life and Evangelization for the Diocese of Lexington. He's going to join us at the top of the hour. Should be a great discussion. If you haven't heard Mike's story before or heard him talk about his ministry, it's a good guy to talk to, isn't he, Dallas?
Very much so.
I think the first time I heard his story was he was at our church for something. I can't remember what it was, but I remember him getting up there and talking about.
Yeah, he actually told his whole conversion story. It was, but I think it was during a mass.
So pretty powerful. I'm excited about that. So, but let's just jump into current events. Is there anything going on in the world right now?
Not a thing. No controversy. No nothing. Everything's just hunky dory.
Just getting back to normal life. You know, COVID, elections. I really think that most people have lost their minds. You know what I mean? And this is my current event. This is my explanation of what is happening with the election. And it's kind of, in my opinion, it's kind of as a result of COVID as well. But we have lost all sense of civility, decency, respect for the office of the president and for politicians in general. And the reason I think that we've lost that is because all of our politicians have lost it for each other, right? You with me when I say that? So none of the politicians treat each other with respect. So we're starting now to emulate the politicians, and we're starting to not treat the politicians with any respect as well. So the offices that we used to hold near and dear, they don't mean anything to us anymore. And now what is starting to happen is, since we treat people that we used to respect in that way, now we're starting to treat each other that way. Have you noticed that on social media?
No, just leave me alone. No.
Have you noticed it on social media? I've seen people on social media that I think are the nicest people going at it with people. And this isn't just church thing. This is, people I ride bikes with. It's people I've socialized with. It's people I've worked with. I mean, it's all over the world, all over the board. People are just tense.
I've always said that with social media, every thought that pops into your head does not have to be put down and wrote out and push send. I don't need to know, and I shouldn't need to know every thought you're thinking.
That's a good point. And that's probably part of it. And, the thing that I've tried to do with this election is just take a deep breath. Posted that as my status update the other day. Just take a deep breath and let it play out. If there's cheating on one side, there's cheating on the other side, right? This is like a complete reversal of what happened in 2000, right? We have a former vice president running for office in 2000. He lost by the narrowest of margins, and it took to middle of December before he conceded. Now we have a former vice president that's probably going to win, and it's going to take the standing president probably to the middle of December to concede. So let's just everybody take a deep breath, sit back, relax, and
the hanging Chad. Do you remember that?
I do remember that. Just treat each other nice, right? Just treat each other nice. We love each other. Love each other. It's that simple. That's my current event. How about you? What's your current event?
That was your homily last week time too. Love.
Love everybody. That's a good. It's a good position to take.
My current event. This is from Catholic News Agency, and the only reason I bring it up, I don't mean it as it's funny, because it's not funny. It's just something I've never ever heard before. Is the Catholic Diocese of Fresno has taken out a restraining order against a priest, and that's what caught my eye. I mean, you hear priest in the news a lot, but I've never heard of restraining order. And they launched an investigation on him after he was accused of drug use, physical abuse, threatening behavior, and linked to gangs. Bishop Joseph Brenham of Fresno at Mass last week, he is not allowed on the property, and on and on and on. I've never heard
crazy.
A priest getting a restraining order.
Do you think that's related to COVID?
As in?
Well, I mean, COVID is causing us to do different things. We're forgetting how to interact with people because we're not around people, right? We're restricted. There's one of our customers. They used to have a place where all the operators could get together. It's an industrial setting, and they could sit there and talk and have lunch together. Now everybody is isolated. They can never be. They got about 15, 16 employees. They can never be in the same room together. And there's the pod word. They're putting people in pods, so they don't interact with anybody. So all day long they sit in front of a computer or a terminal or a control station, and they do their job. They eat lunch by themselves, and then they go home.
Where's that at?
At one of our customers. So, but that's happened in a lot of places, right? We were restricting our interaction. We're not even us at Mass, right? I mean, at the end of Mass, it used to be that we would shake everybody's hand and tell everybody hi, and if somebody had a problem or something, they'd talk to us. We would commune with them. We would communicate with them. We would be in community with them, and that's just not happening anymore. And I think that we're forgetting how to interact with people. That's my theory.
But we're also not allowed.
Okay.
Mass is over. Supposed to leave the parking lot.
It's true. I'm just saying that the COVID is having a lot more issues than I think we acknowledge. Can't get my microphone right today, Steve. I sound okay over there? So that's your current event.
Yes.
Anything else going on in the world? Well, I mean, since the last time we were on, the Dodgers won a World Series.
I didn't know that. I didn't know. I watched that. Baseball is one thing I did watch a lot of this. like baseball. The Reds did halfway decent. Of course, it was a 60-game season too, but they didn't play 180. Was it 62 games?
I think it was something like that. Yeah.
162 games.
But I mean, the Dodgers, they were due. They were way overdue.
Yeah, when I heard the last, I didn't realize that. I thought they had won it since then. They've been in the series though, right?
Oh, well, they've been in the World Series 3 or 4 times over the last 4 or 5 years. So no, it was they were due, and I'm glad they got their monkey off their back. So that's why I'm wearing my Dodger blue tonight. Go Dodgers! And I'm trying to think what else. Anything else happened?
I don't know. I wonder if Mike Allen's a Dodger fan.
He's probably a Dodger fan.
I've seen him at many Reds game. I know he's a Reds fan.
I think he's a Reds fan. Okay, well, we'll find out here in just a couple minutes. What else is going on? COVID, election, Dodgers winning the World Series. There's one other thing that's kind of big going on right now. What do you think that is?
I don't know. What is it?
I don't know. I'm asking you. It's hunting season, Dallas. Come on.
Hunting season. Yeah, I've been hunting and fishing. I went fishing today, and boat broke down.
You broke your new boat.
No, I didn't break it. It wouldn't start. It wouldn't. Electrical issue wouldn't turn over. Nothing. Totally blank.
Getting off the trailer or when you were out?
I was way out. I had to get towed. Had to stop so I didn't get towed me. Brand new boat. Now it's not a motor issue. It's something's not, a fuse blew or something. It's not making any contact in the ignition.
So there's your fishing report for the week. So
Yeah.
so if Jason Barry's listening and he didn't get out he got out on the water, but his boat broke down. And I was hoping to hear because I went scouting with you for the big game deer.
Mr. Deacon Tim, he went walking in the woods.
And I'd like to tell that story to somebody because I said, Dallas, how is retirement? And I love your quote when I ask you that question. So I'll just ask you, Dallas, how's retirement?
I don't.
It doesn't suck. It doesn't suck. So I agree with you. I can't wait till I experience it.
I
experienced
get
it for
that
12
from
hours.
an old Arthur movie, Dudley Moore.
Dudley Moore. All right. Well, I think our guest is here. So without further ado, I'll do a little brief intro here. Mike, can you hear us okay?
Yes, can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine.
Coming in great.
So if you can hear us, we can hear you. That's good. Mr. Mike Allen, for the past 15 years, has been the Director of Family Life and Evangelization for the Diocese of Lexington. He also teaches at Lexington Catholic High School. And before he and his family entered the Catholic Church, Mike was a United Methodist pastor and youth minister for over 15 years. That's 30 right there, if I've got that calculation right. Before he and his wife Angie found themselves, before they saw the light and came to the Catholic faith, drawn to the Catholic faith, I think is the word he used. They've been married for 32 years, have 7 children, wow, ages 15 to 28, and a 4-month-old granddaughter. We'll talk about grandkids, Mike, because I got 2, too, that are both young. Mike is also a Lexington native, so welcome to the show, Mike, Mr. Mike Allen.
Thanks.
And a Dodger fan, right?
And a Dodger fan.
No, I've been on a journey with the Dodgers because back in the 70s and 80s, I hated the Dodgers because I was a Reds fan and they were in the NL West together, which made no sense, Cincinnati in the National League West, but that's what it was. And so, those teams with, you may not be old enough to remember, Tim, Steve Garvey.
Oh, yes. Davey Lopes.
Ron Say. Oh,
Yeah.
man, I despised those guys. And,
Steve Garvey, Davey Lopes, Bill Russell, Ron Say, and Yeager behind the plate. I can't tell you who the outfield was because that's where they changed everybody up. But
Dusty Baker.
yeah, Dusty Baker. Yeah, big
Rick
time.
Monday, Reggie Smith,
How do you really feel about him, Mike?
Well, and then of course, when they switch divisions, now it's the Cardinals that I despise, and on maybe just below them, the Braves. But I have a good friend that I grew up with in church youth group and stuff, and who's Walker Bueller's mother.
Oh, wow.
And so I was pulling for him a little bit, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, last year after he had a good showing in the postseason as well, there was a good quote from Tommy Lasorda that said, I said, Walker, you're going to be a Dodger for a long time. So
He makes it look effortless, and he reminds me a little bit. He's just a tiny bit bigger, but it reminds me a little bit of Oral Hershiser.
yeah, good, same build, right? Just lean,
Mhm.
thin. Also, another Kentucky connection for the Dodgers, Will Smith, played at the University of Louisville. So
Well, we won't hold that against
yeah,
him.
we won't, but I think I think his future's pretty good for a catcher. He hits pretty good for a catcher, and they didn't go to him towards the end of the series. They put him in the DH instead of behind the plate. But
Well, congratulations. I know it's been a long time coming for the Dodgers, and hard to believe a great franchise like that had been on a 32-year drought. And
that's crazy.
maybe the Reds will, Reds won it in '90, so maybe there's going to be some symmetry there, and we can hope.
We can hope. Dallas said they had a good year this year for a 60 game season.
The Reds, they were above 500, right?
Barely, yeah. They
But it was
snuck
only
into the
60
playoffs.
games, I think. And they
Yeah.
scored, what, 2 runs in how many games?
Well, they scored 0 runs in the playoffs.
Oh, that's right.
so-
0. That's right. 0. Yeah.
They went that extra inning game too,
Yeah.
right?
And it was, that's what it was. It was I was saying 0 runs and a lot more innings, but even though it wasn't that many games.
Well, that's a lot about baseball. We could talk baseball all night long because the Dodgers won the World Series. So.
That's right.
Some great games though. I did enjoy the whole postseason. I think the posts. It'll be interesting if they keep this lineup right the way they've got this structured. The one thing I don't like about it is I don't like the 3-game series to start because if somebody gets hot, you can get busted out real
Oh
quick.
yeah, no question.
So maybe that'll be what triggers the Reds into the World Series. I pull for the Reds. We've been to Dallas and I've been
Plenty
to a
of
few
Reds
Reds
games,
games.
yeah.
Steve's you don't see Steve behind the cameras over here, but he's a big time Reds fan, big time Bengals fan. He's had a lot of heartache in his life. So. But Mike, let's talk a little bit about. You want to talk about you, or you want to talk about your ministry first? What do you think?
It doesn't matter.
What's it like coming from the Methodist Church to Catholicism? I mean, I've heard your story. You came to our church, gosh, it seems like 10 or 11 years ago, and told your whole story up at the pulpit. I forget I don't know if that was a mission or if what you were there for, but I was amazed at your story. I mean, it's a great story. Can you kind of tell us how a guy goes 15 years as a Methodist minister and converts to Catholicism?
Yeah, I mean, and everybody's journey is different, of course, but mine went down a path that started with curiosity, not ever thinking it would go anywhere. I grew up in Lexington and went to Baptist churches when I was really little, and then in high school got involved in the Methodist church, really active youth group, and that really had a profound impact on my life. And then when I graduated college, the University of Kentucky, go Cats, even though I was an engineering major and then graduated with an engineering degree,
That's two of us.
I ended up going to Asbury Seminary because I felt I called to full-time Christian ministry. And I wasn't really anti-Catholic. I just was largely ignorant of Catholicism. Now, my grandmother, she was anti-Catholic. She was from rural Wolfe County, Halichiwa, Kentucky.
I don't even know where is that at? Wolfe County.
Wolfe County is like next to Morgan County, West Liberty.
Okay.
Wolfe County is Campton. You ever heard of Campton?
Well, my daughter lives in
it's-
Moorhead, so I've seen.
It's out the Mountain Parkway. You'll go
Okay.
right through Wolfe County, and she was a little from a town called Halichiwa, and the legend was they called it Halichiwa because there were 2 ways to get there, and it was hell each way. But she called Catholics catlickers. I remember very well. So I was pretty ignorant of the Catholic faith, even as a Christian pastor. But I was, like I said, I had some vague perceptions about the Catholic faith, but not enough to worry about, and it was just largely irrelevant to my life. And when I was, it was interesting. I had a class when I came back to school to Asbury to get work on a doctorate degree. I had a preaching professor who gave us a list of novels. He said, pick one of those novels and read it and write a paper on how the themes in that novel might be used in preaching. And I saw one novel that a friend of mine had referenced, a philosophy professor that I knew, and it was by Graham Greene, who was a British author, Catholic, not exactly a poster boy of Catholic sainthood, but his novels, which I read several of them because they were so good, and he had a very his books were just haunted with Catholic imagery and vivid descriptions of the Mass and so forth. And it's interesting how conversion sometimes happens, because if I had picked up a book that said why you should become a Catholic, I would have had my arguments marshaled and my defenses up, and I'd be ready to take on the challenge. But because it was art, literature, it snuck in a side door, and it just piqued a little curiosity in me. And over the next, I don't know, probably 5 or 6 years, I just gradually, I would have a question about, why do Catholics believe that? Or why do they do that? Or, I discovered that my perceptions of the Catholic faith were not always accurate.
Were you discovering all this on your own, or was somebody leading you in that direction? Were you able? Who were you asking these questions, or were you just researching?
Researching. Yes.
Was you getting answers from non-Catholics or Catholic?
No,
material,
I was mainly Catholic material, and it was in many ways an individual, personal journey. I didn't have many Catholic friends. I didn't really consult with anybody. I was just, I had also begun subscribing to a journal called First Things, that was not technically a Catholic journal, but there were a lot of Catholic writers. A guy, Father Richard John Newhouse of blessed memory. He was a former
he's
Lutheran.
Fantastic. I remember him.
Yeah, he was a former Lutheran. Yes. He was a Lutheran pastor who became Catholic, and so forth. So, but I would have these little, I describe it, I'd have these little epiphanies along the way, like, oh, that's why Catholics do that, or, oh, I was wrong about what Catholics believe about this, or, oh, that's the biblical passage that Catholics use to undergird that teaching, and so forth. And so I was having these little, light bulb moments along the way, and I found myself not just curious, but then started see something attractive about the Catholic faith. And, I would even find myself defending the Catholic faith in discussions with non-Catholics, even though, of course I wasn't going to become Catholic in my mind, but I wanted people to have a fair picture.
You were being an apologist already.
Yeah, in many ways. And so, there came a point, probably around April of 2004. There were a couple of books that I read. It's in which all those light bulbs kind of came together, and I saw this. I would describe it as the panoramic beauty of the Catholic faith, and I realized that I was no longer just curious or attracted, that I believed it, which provoked a crisis, because we were living in a Methodist parsonage. We had 6 kids, it was like, what are we going to do? And then my wife.
Was Angie on this journey with you, or I mean,
we
obviously
were
had to be communicating something to her along the way.
Yeah, we had, 6 kids, 11 and under. So deep theological conversations were not commonplace, of course.
Didn't happen at the dinner table then.
But, she would get in the car and turn on the radio, and it was tuned to the Catholic station or something, so it kind of raised an eyebrow. And she knew that I was having this interior kind of, that I was on this journey, but what happened is just, I'd actually prayed to God about it and said, God, if you wanting me to become Catholic, then you're going to have to convince my wife, because I can't do that. And, I thought I'd kind of taking the monkey off my back, because, then I just would entrust it to God. And, funny thing happens when you do that, because she began to pick up some of these books that I had lying around the house just on her own and started reading them. And then she found herself on the same journey. And then I just can remember that summer of 2004, we would just lie there at night, and it felt like there was a 50-pound rock on our chests. It was just like we felt this just overwhelming sense of call, and what are we going to do with this, and so forth. And so the rest, as they say, is kind of history, really.
2004 it happened then.
Well, we entered the church actually in August of 2005.
Which parish?
Because Mary Queen of the Holy Rosary. Because we, in the Methodist Church, there's some actually, Methodism is sort of I would explain it this way. Methodism began as a renewal movement within Anglicanism, or the Episcopal Church, or, the Church of England. So in some ways, Methodism is to Anglicanism what Anglicanism is to Catholicism. So, in the Methodist Church, you have a bishop, and as pastors, we were appointed by a bishop to a congregation. And typically in that Methodist Church, it is very similar to in our own diocese, where, you have your appointment has to either be renewed every year, or you might be moved to a different church. And so I knew sometime around November, December of 2004 that this was going to have to be our last year as in Methodist ministry. And
wasn't there a time, I remember, if I remember your story right, where you told your wife Angie that can't we just think? Can we just think we're Catholic instead of actually going over,
I knew.
And the Eucharist drew her in or something.
Yeah, I started having cold feet, and just recognizing how scary it was. And my wife has always been a person with stronger faith than me, and so I told her, maybe we can just forget this whole thing. I remember it was a Saturday morning, because we had gotten into the habit of, we lived just in the shadow of Christ the King, the cathedral. I think that there was some sort of gamma rays coming out of the cathedral drawing us in. But we had gotten in the habit of individually, because our kids were also young, sneaking into a daily mass over at the cathedral. And, we'd have this habit of sneaking in late, sitting in the back, and then slipping out early, which turned out to be a good practice for actually being Catholic.
You passed the test.
So she was leaving. It was a Saturday morning, and I was sitting there drinking a cup of coffee, and she was walking out the door, and I said, Angie, maybe we don't have to do that. Maybe we can just appreciate the Catholic Church from a distance, and be content with that. And I'll never forget. Thanks for reminding me, Dallas, Deacon. She had her back to me, and it felt like, gosh, 2 minutes, but it was probably 10 seconds. And then she turned around, and her eyes were welling up with tears. And she said, all of my life, I've wanted it to be true, that it is the body and blood of Jesus Christ. And I never let myself believe it before. She said, I have to do this. And so at that point, I knew I was in big trouble.
You had hit the point of no return at that point.
Yes. So, we entered the church in August of 2005, just had our 15-year anniversary as Catholics. And
was Father Bob still there, or was who was
no Father Bob? Father Bob came in later for on an interim, kind of thing. He's everybody's interim, in retirement.
He's our he was our pre-COVID spiritual director. We haven't seen him since COVID.
A great priest, great man.
Yes.
I'm trying to think of who was I think Father Danny Schwindeman and Father Jacob Curian, I think, were the two priests that were there. They were not pastors at that point.
Right. So did all the kids come in at the same time?
Yes, our four oldest, because a lot of folks, well, maybe or may not know this. If you're 7 years old and up, if you come into communion in the church, then you have to be confirmed,
right?
Because you're considered an adult in the faith.
A lot of people don't know that. That's true.
Oh yeah. So our four oldest were confirmed, and then of course all of our children had been baptized as infants, because in the Methodist Church we do baptize infants. And yeah, so our two sons and our youngest daughter, they were really young, so they went through the whole process of First Communion and confirmation and the rest.
And so you come into the church, and if I've got my math correct, you go right into the job that you have today, the director of family life.
Well, it's interesting.
That would have been with Bishop Gaynor, right?
Actually, we entered the Catholic Church on August 13th. I started working for the diocese July 1st. So I was actually employed by the diocese for 6 weeks before I was fully Catholic. We had gotten to know, I had reached out to Bishop Gaynor in like the fall of 2004. Somebody had recommended that I do that, just to tell him our story and see if he had any guidance in terms of vocational sort of things, and he was, of course, Bishop Gaynor, very much a pastor's heart and kind person. And we met with it. He met with me, and he came over to our house for dinner and so forth. And so he talked about that the diocese was thinking about creating a position, the director of family life. They had that office before, but it was just part-time, and it had been closed for a couple of years. And he said, and I think when we decide to open that office again, I would think you might be a candidate for that. I can't promise anything, of course. And so we went through all that spring of 2005. I had no idea what I was going to do for a living. And, the house we lived belonged to the church, and my wife was pregnant with our seventh at that point. And
you had to have a lot of trust in God at that point.
It was a really crisis of faith for me, because I didn't know what I was going to do, and I kept hitting closed door after a closed door, and so we got down to it was the day before we were going to move out of the Methodist parsonage. We'd already signed a lease to rent a house that I didn't know how I was going to pay the bill. And I called Bishop Gaynor because, it had been a slow process. Nothing moves fast in the church, as you know. And so I just thought I thought I'd call Bishop Gaynor and just see where the position was, and then if they were going to start interviewing or whatever. And I called him the day before. We were putting stuff in boxes, to move out. I called him, and after a couple of minutes, I asked him about the position. He said, "Oh, I'm so glad you called." He said, "Because I just was in a meeting earlier today, and we've decided that we're going to go ahead and open the position, and I want to offer you the position."
Wow.
And it's funny because Bishop Gaynor said, "You probably want to take some time to pray about this." I said,
I've got seven kids and no job.
I said, "Bishop Gaynor, I have prayed about it. I accept."
It's the fastest prayer known to man. Boom.
Boom. Yeah. So it really, I'm grateful every day for that opportunity, because he took a real leap, in hiring me.
So at that point, was it just family life at that point, not evangelization, just family life?
Yeah, evangelization got added later. Yeah.
So tell us just a little bit about what your responsibility is, what that office at the diocese is responsible for. I mean, obviously Dallas and I do a lot of stuff with Focus, so we know that part of it, pre-marriage counseling and stuff. But tell our listeners kind of what you do, and maybe how you can help them if they need help.
Sure. And it's funny because I talk about what does my office do? Well, it's me, you know. I mean,
you get to get with your people.
yeah, my people. Yeah. About 5 of us share an administrative assistant who's fantastic. I mean, she's Claudia's outstanding, but it is you know, it's us. So when I first started in the position, I asked Bishop Gaynor, okay, so you hired me. What do you want me to do? And he really wanted us to strengthen and develop and evaluate and deepen our process of marriage preparation. And that's probably been in terms of the chunk that takes the most of my time over the last 15 years, because we have, comparatively speaking, we have a more rigorous process of marriage preparation than the average diocese. And so
average Catholic diocese.
Yes, average Catholic diocese, right. So and so we have we try to give couples a good understanding of what marriage is, why it even exists, how it fits within the Catholic faith, an understanding of our sexuality, usually really through the lens of Pope St. John Paul II's theology of the body. So, because what we felt like was what we were doing in marriage preparation was good, but we felt like it was incomplete, because the typical pre-Cana class primarily talked about relationship skills, which are important, of course,
sure,
skills and virtues, but it's also very important to have a vision, an understanding of what marriage is as a reality. So I would compare it to somebody who's preparing for priesthood or the diaconate or religious life, that it's not, for a potential priest in seminary, they don't just need to learn about how to do the things that a priest does, which they do need to do that, right?
Not the only thing, right?
But they also need to have a real understanding of what the priesthood is, what it means to be a priest. And so that's kind of we tried to bring that in to augment what was already being done. And then we also ask a full course for couples of natural family planning, so they can kind of have an idea of how to live out this vision of our sexuality and fertility within married life. So, I try to train and develop leaders in parishes. I do some teaching myself, try to coordinate all that stuff. And that takes a good bit of time and energy. As you probably know that. Go ahead.
I was just wondering, do you have enough focus couples out there?
You mean
facilitators? Yes.
Facilitators. No, we could always use more for sure. And focus is, for those of you who don't know what focus is, it's a premarital inventory.
Not a test.
It's not a test.
Not a test.
Not a test.
You remember that well from your training. Focus is spelled with 2 C's in the middle. It's not misspelled. It's facilitating open couple communication, understanding, and study. And so the individual fiancés respond to about 150 plus different statements, whether they agree, disagree, or uncertain. And then when they complete the survey, which they do online, it generates a report that compares their responses, so they can get a better picture of maybe where they're particularly strong, maybe some growth areas, maybe things that they thought they had discussed but hadn't really.
Yeah,
and
I like when we get them back, and I see the overall compatibility is 22%. You're like, oh, this is going to be a long session.
Well, the exact opposite of that is when it's 99%. You're like, okay, you all sat in the same room together.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
And
so
I enjoy it. Kelly and I really, really enjoy it. I don't know if we've had as many couples as you all have had.
Not even close.
Dallas is the go-to guy at the parish. But it's a fun ministry for us. We enjoy it. We enjoy meeting the young couples and hearing their stories and watching them grow through the process. I mean, to me, that's where we know that focus works, is because you can see from the first meeting to the, if it's second, third, however many you are, by the time you get to the end, they've changed as a couple. So, and I think that's what you want to see, right? You want to see that growth.
No question. And for them to, be willing to grapple with things. I mean, if this hasn't happened a lot, but it does happen occasionally where a couple will go through the marriage preparation process and they'll learn, we probably shouldn't be doing this. And, that's certainly not the aim of what we do, but if that's the case, better to find out now than, and save yourself a lot of heartache that can come later.
Yeah. Do you have statistics in the diocese? Do y'all keep statistics of people that don't get married that go through Focus? Because I mean, that hasn't happened to us. I don't think
not
anybody,
yet. Not that I'm
in
aware
our
of.
parish, but
no,
I'm assuming it does happen.
Yeah, I'd say it. I would spitball and say less than 5%. But
what about the sister part of this? Does the diocese do much with refocus? Because I think that might be something that we need in our parish.
Yeah, I mean, we of course, I think I took you guys through it with your spouses in your diaconal formation, I believe.
Yes, that was enlightening.
Yeah, I mean, and every Focus facilitator.
That was enlightening.
Yeah, I mean, I has the is certified to do refocus too. So it's always when you're in a diocesan office, it's sort of you try to walk that fine line, because I mean, ultimately ministry best happens in the local parish, right? That's really where we have this understanding of subsidiarity, right? So sometimes, how I see my office is to be a resource to help the local parish. Any support that I can make, kind of see me as somehow an extension of the staff. But if there are people in the parish that want to do that sort of thing, I'll do anything that I can do to help that happen.
Does that happen typically in a one-on-one environment, or does it happen in a group environment? Because we did it at through the diaconate formation, which is a unique situation. But is that something that's done in a group formation, or would you say that if a parish is going to offer it, they should offer it one-on-one?
No, I think it can be either way. I think usually, I mean, if you're administering refocus to a couple who is in real need of some marital healing, probably it should be best done in an individual one or 2-on-2 circumstance. But if you're doing it as an enrichment, of course, you may start with it being enrichment and find yourself in a crisis.
We got Houston. We have a problem.
I mean, when we did Focus, I mean, you talk about the 99 percentile. Me and my wife was like 99.9. We were done. There was nothing to discuss, and we sat back and watched the whole room fight. It was funny. I'm sorry. You thought you knew your spouse.
Well, Dallas, you and Sherry are unique. You all were a perfect match. You were born for each other.
I like to think so.
They never argue. Ever.
We never argue.
Ever.
I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah. Go figure, Mike. I know what you're thinking.
Yeah, I know. Crazy.
Mike, let me ask you, when I do Focus, and we kind of go over the next steps after Focus, I try to steer, and it's just my opinion, I wanted to get yours, I try to steer everyone towards the retreat, okay, instead of the other options they have, like the God's Plan, I forget what
Sure.
they're called. Which do you prefer of those two options? Do you think's better? And because I just think it's better to be with other engaged couples.
Yeah, so we have these three primary components: the God's Plan for a Joy-Filled Marriage, what we call the married life component, which can be either a sponsor couple or a class at a parish that offers it, like Christ the King or Mary Queen, Seton, and so forth, and natural family planning. In normal times, meaning non-pandemic times, we offer a full weekend retreat several times a year so that you could fulfill those first two components, the God's plan and the married life, in one weekend. And I like that. I think there's a great deal of benefit of having that dedicated time through a whole weekend. Of course, they get to know the other couples. You know them more personally. And just like anybody who goes on a retreat, there's an opportunity for more lengthy, intentional reflection. So yeah, I'm a big fan of the retreat. We've kind of had to recalibrate things, not just for the pandemic, because when Cliffview closed, so we went from having 3 a year to, at least right now, we're having 2 a year. Once we get past the pandemic, there's a Methodist retreat center in Estill County that we're going to be using.
But right now it's not in person, right? You don't have
nothing's in person right now, and probably won't be until, I'm assuming probably at least next summer.
Yeah, that was going to be one of my questions. Is, has the pandemic affected your ministry?
Yeah, everybody's on a learning curve, of course, and using, like, everybody's got Zoom fatigue. I recognize, but man, you look at the numbers in nationwide in Kentucky, it's a little bit, it's a little unnerving.
And it didn't end Tuesday.
Yeah. I thought it was supposed to end after the election. What are you talking about? I think our positivity rate was like 6.7% today or something.
But it's going to get better. That's the promise, right? It'll get better.
It's going to get better
eventually, hopefully. But so and we're working on, so the married life that happens. That one of the options is to take a class in a parish. So what we're doing on that is we got a bunch of different leaders of that from different parishes in Lexington. And we're in the middle. We just filmed. We're using a production company we're going to take the presentations and we're going to have them professionally edited and put together. And we'll have couples, rather than sit in a 6-hour Zoom call, they'll be able to do it at their own pace.
Who doesn't love a 6-hour? Who doesn't love a 6-hour Zoom call?
Oh yeah, that's beautiful. I've got one tomorrow, so yeah, wonderful. But and then they'll meet with the facilitator couple once they finish that, just to kind of break down what they gained from it. It's as I said to somebody the other day, it's not ideal, but we tossed ideal out the window some time ago. So.
Yeah, Dallas and I both have had a wedding. I had one probably in the middle of the pandemic, a month.
Yeah, about a month ago.
The whole ministry of marriage, not just the prep side, but all the way through to the ceremony itself. And it's, I liked the wedding that I did because it was simple. There were only 20. I think there were 25. At that point, we could have 25 people in our church, and that's how many people were there. And I was actually with a Methodist minister. It was kind of. Interesting, but it was great because nobody was on edge. You know how everybody wants everything to be perfect at a wedding, but here everybody knew it wasn't going to be perfect. We were just trying to make it happen, and everybody, that's what the goal was. They loved each other. They didn't want to wait for 6 months or another year. Let's just make this happen, and everybody was so nice, which doesn't always happen at a wedding.
And it's, this time is tough on, some marriages have gotten closer through the pandemic, and then others have exacerbated some difficulties.
And we were talking about that before you came on, actually. Just as my current event was the pandemic and the election, and that a lot of people have lost their minds in this country and in this state. A lot of our friends, I'm saying, I see people under the stress and the pressure of not being in community with people, not interacting with people in a normal way. that stress that's going on, and you know what's happening in marriages. It's probably a little bit more hidden now than it was before, right? Because everybody's at home and you don't see it.
Except in mine. Yeah.
Except at Dallas, they don't argue at all. But I think it's a very challenging environment, and I can't wait for it to be over, whenever that's going to happen.
You and me, brother, for sure.
So, what's one thing that somebody should know about the family life at the diocese? What's one thing that's a hidden treasure, or something that people don't know that they should know about the ministry, or resources, or not trying to put you on the spot.
we of course we try to keep in mind all the different places that people are. We've developed over the last several years a ministry for divorced Catholics, and people hear that term divorced Catholic and they think that's like jumbo shrimp or something, that they don't go together.
Right.
But, I mean, we all know the church has been impacted by divorce, and how do we help people along that journey toward healing? And a lot of misconceptions about what the church teaches, and it's the beautiful thing about the Catholic Church is we understand. I mean, I remember somebody said to me, well, why in the world would you have a ministry to divorced persons? Because we believe that the marriage is permanent. I said, well, we also know that we're all called to be holy, but we still build confessionals. There's a lot of there's a lot of brokenness.
Yeah, I had an aunt that most of my adult life, she got divorced when I was a young kid, probably, I don't know, 14, 15 years old. She lived in Somerset, moved up back to Louisville to live with her mom. For the whole time I knew her, went to Mass every Sunday, and never went to communion because she thought she couldn't go to communion.
Oh, yeah.
As a divorced Catholic. So, that ministry is important just from an education point of view to really educate what the church teaches. So many people think they understand it, and they don't.
And of course, we're a real growing edge for me and for several of us at the diocese too has been, it used to be in the diocese that we had regarding Spanish language ministry, we had a sort of a silo set up where Hispanic ministry was its own silo,
right?
And it was separate from all the other offices, and and really prompted a lot by Bishop John, and for good reason. We're on that slow journey toward being more integrated, so that I'm not just the director of family life ministries for the English-speaking Catholics of the diocese, but for everybody, right? So, I've been, as best I can, learning Spanish. We have some wonderful volunteer couples whose English is about as good as my Spanish, which not but fluent in their language, and people who think about one particular couple whose dedication to the church and to their ministry is one of the greatest and most profound commitments that I've ever seen from a lay volunteer. I mean, and that's a beautiful thing, and the kind of thing, as it's as in leadership in the church. Sometimes one of the most challenging things sometimes is to find people laity volunteers who will really own a particular ministry and not have to be cajoled and pushed and
forward,
and all that kind of to have somebody who owns it and takes it. That's a profound thing.
Yeah, it's always a good idea until you want them to be in charge of it or to move it forward. Then, wait a minute, I can't do that. So when you find somebody that does that, that's a good thing, that moves on their own. So, and I always like, this is usually the last question I always end up with, Mike. Who is a guest we should have on our show?
Oh, that's a great question.
Not to put you on the spot. We've had Lavinia Spirito. Do you know Rocco Pomo? Do you know who he is? The whisper.
Oh yeah, Whispers in the Loggia.
Yeah,
Yeah,
We
you
had
had
him
him.
on. We had Gus Lloyd on satellite radio, and
So we've had some good ones, and now we've had the world famous Mike Allen.
Yeah,
So,
world famous.
now
Yeah.
we're thinking about quitting because we can't top that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's that's right.
We would like to have you in the studio though. So when the pandemic is over, we would like you to come in, and because we can take questions and stuff, and it's a little bit different, more intimate setting.
You know, I would, in terms of future guests, I don't know how well you know Deacon Eduardo Fortini, who is the coordinator of Hispanic ministry and the diocese.
I get his emails all the time, but I can't read them.
He is one of the most energetic, passionate.
He's from
people.
Colombia, isn't he? Is he from Colombia?
No, he was born and raised in Argentina.
Yeah.
Well, early years he was in Argentina, and then he was in Genoa, in Italy.
I love
And,
love his accent. He was.
Oh yeah.
He was on the training session we just had a week or so ago, and I'm like, if we needed to cast somebody for The Godfather, he would be perfect.
Well, and he's been involved with several others. We've had there's been I don't want to go into too much detail, but demonic oppression and possession is a reality,
Right. Oh no.
and he has been involved with several situations.
What's one of
in
the
our own
things?
diocese.
One of the persons on my list is somebody who is an expert in exorcism. I want to try to find the national leader on exorcisms, and I want to have him on the show. That's my goal.
Well, I know there's a priest in Covington that is an official exorcist for the diocese there.
I know they like to keep that secret sometimes. They don't like to really talk about it, but I think it's real, and in today's world, sometimes a lot of people say that evil doesn't exist, or there is no hell, and it does, and there is. So
another guest I would mention too is Jason Hall. I don't know if you know Jason.
I know
Hall,
Jason well. Yeah, absolutely.
Director of the Catholic Conference of Kentucky. So
he'd be a great. That's a great. Both of those are great suggestions, Mike. So I reach out to both of them. I think they both be. Jason, obviously he's coming out of his hot season right now. Since the election's over. So all the new.
Is it over? Is it over?
Well, it is.
Election?
It is in Kentucky. There's a
it's
lot.
not, but we pretty much know who won. Come on.
There's a lot of new faces going to Frankfurt, so it'll be interesting. I'm part of at work. I'm part of a lobbying group for our industry, and when there's an election that has this many new faces going to Frankfurt, you got to work. Because people going into Frankfurt don't know a lot of things. They don't know a lot of these issues. They run because they've got a problem in their district or in their area, and they want to try to fix that thing. But there's a whole lot more going on.
Well, and Jason knows more about has forgotten more about politics than I know. He was kind of, I think I get a sense he was, when he was young, he was like an Alex P. Keaton, from the old Family Ties show.
Yeah.
And he worked in Frankfurt for many years before he became Catholic. So, yeah.
Great suggestions. Well, Mike, we appreciate your time. We have a little gift we send you. If you were here, we would give it to you, but I'll send it to you in the mail, and you'll get it because we can't see each other during the pandemic. But
it's not a Dodger jersey, is it?
It is not. It actually is. It's a rosary. It's what's called a rugged rosary.
Oh, wonderful!
But it was blessed by Tommy Lasordo before he passed.
Actually, who one of the biggest
who was Catholic, by
Catholic Dodger fans there is Vin Scully. I mean, he's a knight of
Oh
Columbus.
yeah,
he's.
It's sad. It's sad that he stepped down. And wasn't able to call the games this year.
What a good guy, and not a ministry, but a lifelong desire or lifelong dedication to a team for sure. So
I am a little disappointed that Father Lynn wasn't on here too. I mean that. he
Well,
always spices things up a little bit.
We had a restraining order against him.
I thought maybe the FC.
I threw in some different names to protect the innocent, but he was the one, really.
He is,
maybe the FCC cracked down on you a little bit.
well, he's usually here. He had a tooth. He had a emergency tooth extraction or something. So
mercy.
He can't talk. Imagine that.
Imagine that. Yes.
So he can type very well. We've been in contact via text, but next time when you come in the studio, he will be here, and as long as it's in the next couple years while he's still assigned here to our parish. So he's been here for 14 years, 13 years, however long he's been here. He's on extended play.
Well, I look forward to the pandemic being over and be happy and be there. And
all right. Well, Mike, we appreciate it, and have a blessed day, and we will see you soon.
All right. Thanks.
Thanks, Mike Allen.
God bless.
There you go. Boom. Mike Allen. Good show. He's a good guy.
Is there a saint of the day?
There is a saint of the day. Is Steve ready for the saint of the day?
Who is it? Who's the saint of the day?
Saint Nicholas Catholic and companions. I'm going to have to learn a little bit about this because I haven't heard this one before, but here is the saint of the day.
This is Franciscan Media's Saint of the Day for November 6th. Today we celebrate St. Nicholas Catholic and companions. Today's saint and his 3 companions are among the 158 Franciscans to have been martyred in the Holy Land since the friars became custodians of the shrines and holy places in 1335. Nicholas was born in 1840 to a wealthy noble family in Croatia. He joined the Franciscans and was sent to Bosnia. In 1384, he and a fellow friar volunteered to serve in the Holy. Their duties included looking after the holy places, caring for the Christian pilgrims, and studying Arabic. In 1391, Nicholas and 3 other friars decided to take a more direct approach to converting the Muslim population. Reading from a prepared statement in Jerusalem's Mosque of Omar, they stated that all people must accept the gospel of Jesus. When the mosque official ordered them to retract the statement, they refused. After beatings and imprisonment, the friars were beheaded before a large crowd. In 1970, Nicholas Catholic and his companions became the first Franciscans martyred in the Holy Land to be canonized. There's more about the saints along with inspiration and Catholic resources at our website, saintoftheday.org. From Franciscan Media, this has been Saint of the Day.
St. Nicholas Catholic. Franciscan Media really likes Franciscan saints. Have you noticed that? Hey, next week we're working on some things. Look, possibly getting somebody from Stephen's ministry to come talk about what that ministry is all about. It's a ministry that's been in our parish, I think, a little bit over a couple years now. Or we might just talk about, depending on what Father Lynn's got up his sleeve, maybe some Catholic topics.